Call the May 15th, 2012 City Council meeting to order. Will you please rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Francisco. Here. Hotchkiss. Here. House. Murillo. Here. Rouse. White. Mayor Schneider.
Here. Thank you. Any changes to the agenda?
No, there aren't, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Public comment. I have one speaker slip. We have Mike Larbig. Would you like to come on up? 2 minutes here at the podium. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, members of the council. My name is Mike Larbig. I live at 205 San Nicolas on the Mesa, and I've lived there for 17 years with my wife and 2 school-age kids. Last week, I found out that my direct neighbor is going to be renting his house to a non-permitted and licensed business that's going to be operating a sober living home for up to 10 people, we understand. Needless to say, there are several neighbors and friends on our street alone who are concerned about this. There's 22 children that live on San Nicolas Avenue right now. There's 15 school-age kids that live within 100 feet of this particular house. So my point today is, in my limited time, is just to make you all aware of this. I know that some of you have received some emails from some of my neighbors, and we're finding out more about it. I was able to steal about 5 minutes of Randy Rouse's, our Mesa neighbor's time to discuss it with him. I visited the city zoning and building department yesterday, and they were very accommodating and helpful. They're looking into it, and none of us are opposed to these types of homes and help for people that need some help, but we're concerned about the quality of life and doing this in a residential neighborhood. There's some people who have houses for sale on our street right now, and they're concerned from a financial aspect. I really don't care about that. I live right next door to this house. Last night at dinner, I had to explain to my 2 9-year-old kids what we were going to be doing and why we needed to do this. So please be aware of the situation. We'll be keeping you notified with what's happening on the block, and we hope that you will support us in getting this issue resolved. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hotchkiss has a question for you.
Hi. I got your voicemail today. Thank you. I'm glad you came down here, and I'm glad that you talked to Mr. Rouse. I don't know if what I say will be comforting or not. I'm a realtor, I think, as you may know, and one of the homes that I marketed at one point was just the kind of center you're talking about. This one was entirely for ladies. There were about 8 or 10 of them I got. And there was a den mother that sort of lived there and ran the place. And it was honestly spotless. And these people were, as you say, recovering, but they were all walking the straight and narrow. And it was not in, as you point out, a residential neighborhood, so that makes it a little bit different. But I just wanted to let you know if it's the same kind of operation that there were really people on the way up, and some of them were out. Actually, one of them worked at Pinkberry for a while, and I walked in there, and she said, "Oh, hi," and I couldn't remember where I knew her from. She said, "Remember." So it's not, at least I don't believe, as detrimental or as awful as I would initially think, but it is different, and it is a business, and I understand that how that does affect a residential neighborhood, and you didn't move to have a business next door. So as I understand it, maybe Mr. Wiley can speak to this, we are kind of overwhelmed by state law in this case.
I understand that.
But you've heard that, so you understand that.
Yeah, and I researched that, and I appreciate your comments, Mr. Hotchkiss. And you get on the internet and you talk to, or you read strings of emails from other people that have had radically different experiences than the one you described when a house is in close proximity. So there's 2 sides of the story. Everybody deserves a chance. It's a single-family neighborhood. I know there's state law that might supersede local issues, but we need to put these types of homes in areas that are more commercial in nature.
Yeah, I understand your fear exactly, and it wasn't in any way criticizing you. I just want to let you know that.
Thank you.
Surprisingly, my experience had been really remarkable in the other direction, I thought it might be a little bit comforting anyway.
Okay.
Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's the only public comment speaker slip I have, so I'll close public comment and move on to the consent calendar. There are no items to read. I would like to bring up item number 4, if you could just read the title of that.
Item 4, Legal Services Contract for Oversight Board.
This is just about authorizing, I think, $25,000 for legal services. Is about the RDA transition through the Oversight Committee, and just Mr. Armstrong to just put out there. So this is coming out of our over budget. Like, how is it being paid for, and what are the impacts, financial impacts for us in this?
The funding for this will come out of the tax increment money. The tax increment money that was previously going to the RDA is now coming to the successor agency. I think the question that has not yet been resolved is there's a certain allowance for administrative cost that we receive out of that, and whether or not this will be funded out of that allowance, which therefore would have less money available for other administrative costs that we're going to incur, or if it can be called what's an enforceable obligation and be on top of that. And that'll be decided, I think, as we go forward.
Okay.
So we do have a concern that it'll affect some other monies available for other costs that eventually could drop down and hurt us in the general fund.
And just in terms of the administrative costs that we're currently, what type of activities right now that are we using that administrative funding for?
Well, it's the staff that still remains to close up the process, cost for the attorney's office. There's a portion of my salary, a portion of Mr. Casey's salary. And remember, all of these things were budgeted at the beginning of the fiscal year when we didn't know that the RDA was going to go away. And so we still have to go through the end of this fiscal year. And then there's cost of the finance department. There's administrative overhead, the things that we were charging to the RDA as a legitimate administrative cost. And as of February 1st, when the RDA went away, then there's a limit on what we can spend those monies for, and we think we're going to exceed that, and therefore this would affect the available funds that we can use.
Okay, and the purpose of hiring an outside attorney is just to have a neutral party there on this issue, or?
Yeah, and I can't speak for the entire board, but I think that the members of the board felt that the city attorney's office, although could give quality legal advice, had a conflict of interest because the attorney's office also represents the city and the successor agency.
Okay.
And they felt they needed a third party that could give them advice.
Okay. Is this item 4? Mr. White, did you have, or something else?
I have a question on item 2.
Okay, and Ms. Murillo, is it also on something else?
Item 2
Okay.
for me.
All right, I don't need to vote on this separately. I just wanted to bring that up. If you could, Susan, read item 2.
Purchase of water from Carpinteria Valley Water District.
Mr. White?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hi, Ms. Bjork. The council agenda report says that the Public Works Director could purchase up to 600 acre-feet. Could you share what the up to is about? Would you expect to purchase? And then it doesn't say up to $90,000. It just says $90,000. So could you describe what you see as a plan on this?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Councilmember White. I'm Rebecca Bjork, Water Resources Manager. The up to 600 acre-feet was the most that we thought we might buy should that much water be available. Carpinteria Valley Water District has offered 1,200 acre-feet of water to the South Coast participants. I knew that Montecito was interested, did not know whether Goleta was also interested. Both those agencies are interested. We have talked. We believe the best way to proceed is not to compete against each other and just divide it up into 400 acre-foot shares. So the cost is $150 an acre-foot, and that's really the primary reason for purchasing this water. It's very good price for water, cheaper than many of our other sources. So for 400 acre-feet, it would be $60,000.
Thank you. And then does this get stored in Cachuma, or is in the San Luis Reservoir a place where some of the state water at least can be stored?
This is Cachuma water. So this is water that would be stored in Cachuma.
Okay. And then does it evaporate, and does it have that loss attached to it?
It does. It's subject to loss through evaporation, as is all of our Kachuma water, and loss through spill if the Kachuma reservoir fills and spills. However, we don't have a complete loss on that, in that going into a spill with some amount of water in reserve helps us to come out of the spill in a better position. You come out where you started, so if we started with more water, it lets us defer taking our entitlement water.
Right. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Murillo?
Thank you. I would just like a general explanation of why we want to buy water. It makes me a little nervous if we haven't been planning properly. The public needs to know. I think one thing the public isn't in touch with is water supply. And so is there a drought? Do we need to ask people to conserve water?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Murillo, as part of the city's long-term water supply plan that was adopted last June, we made a policy change to change our planning window from planning for 5 years of drought to planning for 6 years of drought. The reason for that was that one of our drought supplies is the desal plant, and there's a fairly long lead time to put the desal plant back online. So that would mean that if we thought we needed the desal plant as a drought supply, we really need to start investing in that resource in year 3 of a drought. We get to year 3 pretty often. So by going to a 6-year planning horizon, it means that we don't have to start planning to use desal until year 4, which is a big change because we don't get to 4-year dry periods very frequently. So that will help us significantly in avoiding those costs in planning to have water in a drought. So as part of that planning strategy, we did identify that we would avoid the use of the desal by finding other drought supplies and taking advantage of drought supplies in the form of purchases of water. And this is a great opportunity for us to follow through on that policy, purchase very cost-effective water that can serve as a drought supply should this year's dry winter extend into many years of dry winter. So it's really looking forward. It's really an insurance policy if we are in fact going into an extended drought. At this point in time, we actually have quite a bit of water. I'm projecting we'll end this water year, which ends September 30th, with about 6,500 acre feet of water supplies that we will carry forward into the following year. This would add to that, make it almost 7,000 acre feet. Very good place to be in terms of managing costs and managing water supplies going forward. You mentioned water conservation. Water conservation is an important part of our water supply as well, and we have a great residents that does a great job conserving water, and we'd like to thank them for their good work. It does a lot to stretch these water supplies and keep us from having to develop new and expensive water supplies.
Thank you. Mr. Hotchkiss?
Just a curiosity question. It never occurred to me that we might lose this to Mother Nature herself, either through evaporation or overflow. How do you figure what our evaporation is? I mean, is there a formula for this?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Hotchkiss, there is actually, it's not a formula. They actually measure the amount of evaporation that's occurring both at Gibraltar for our Gibraltar supplies and at Kachuma. They have a dish of water and they measure how much water evaporates out of it.
So they take a chunk of that out of ours here or whatever?
It's taken, we have accounts, so it's debited against our
I
accounts.
just couldn't imagine how this was happening. Thank you.
Mr. House?
Your answer to Councilmember Murillo reminds me, you pretty much have taught us that this last year, as well as it could have been, and we begin a little bit of a dry season, this is the first year of our next 10-year drought. And we actually live like that, and the conservation efforts need to go on no matter how well it's been for the past. I think that's a part of what you're trying to convey.
That's absolutely correct, Councilmember House, and hopefully not a 10-year drought.
Right. I made it up.
Mr. White?
What is it's a little bit sort of taking off from Ms. Murillo's question. How much is bringing the desal plant online? What is the rough cost of that in today's dollars? We had a study done in 2009 or 2010. I'm sorry, I'm losing track, but I think it was 2010, and in 2010 dollars it was about $17 million. The important part of that
is that about probably $1 million of that would have to be spent in preliminary design early in the process. And that's what we're trying to avoid, is having to go into design sooner than we need to. Because we identified there was about an 18 to 20-month lead time on putting that plant back in line.
So these up to $90,000 numbers are helpful. They're in a form of insurance policy against that $17 million expenditure. So that's kind of, at least that's how I would look at it anyway.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember White, yes, that's true. Even aside from that, this is a very cost-effective water supply. If we apportion, Kachuma kind of operates as a fixed cost, but given that we also have a fixed supply, we can figure out our typical Kachuma cost, which is about $250 an acre foot. So that being one of our most affordable supplies lets you understand what an opportunity this is. Our groundwater costs range from $150, $200 an acre foot to $600 an acre foot to pump and treat groundwater. So we could also use this water to offset the need to pump and treat groundwater, save the money on that, save the water in our groundwater aquifers, and actually come out ahead there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else on the consent calendar, or is there a motion to approve it?
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that concludes the consent calendar report from the Finance Committee. Mr. Francisco.
Madam Mayor, the Finance Committee met today, and we did two things. We recommended the full council approve a loan of federal affordable housing money to Habitat for Humanity for a 12-condominium low-income housing project on East Cannon Perdido. We also had a lively and spirited discussion, which I highly recommend you watch on video, of the proposal to use some Measure B funding instead of general fund money as part of the Andre Clark Bird Refuge Restoration Project. And that we decided to recommend no recommendation to the full council on a 2-1 vote. We think it's a topic of enough complexity that really deserves a full airing here before council.
Okay. Thank you. Any council member committee assignment reports? Ms. Murillo.
Is it appropriate for me to add something about the Finance Committee
Oh,
meeting, or
I
is
didn't
it
see
just the
that.
chair gets to say something?
No, I think if you want to, you don't want to start a whole conversation
No,
about
I
the
don't.
policy, but feel free to add to
okay.
the
Oh, I see what
report.
you're saying.
Did you want to add anything?
No, I guess not.
Okay.
But I do have something to say, but I don't want to break the rules.
Well,
so.
We can hardly wait for this to get to the full council then. Okay, back to council member committee assignment reports. Mr. Rouse.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At the Thursday, May 10th meeting of the Downtown Parking Committee, the CODA and Carrillo lot operations were discussed in terms of remissioning the CODA lot or reconfiguring the CODA lot so we could go to a new operating scenario that would allow us for some automation and perhaps later hours of operation for that lot with public as well as the commuters. And then, of course, the status of the commuter lot shuttles was discussed, lack of the RDA funding, and the potential future either loss or some reconfiguration of that service as well.
Okay. Ms. Murillo.
Thank you. This morning I attended a meeting of the MTD, our bus agency, and we talked about how to pay for the loss of the $300,000 of redevelopment money for the downtown and waterfront shuttle. And it mirrored what we had talked about, but they get to decide what happens. And then I attended the Milpas Action Task Force meeting, and we had a presentation from the restorative policing officers, and there's a lot of support for finding funding to keep our restorative policing function going.
Great. Thank you. I want to commend the Environmental Services Department for last Thursday's Spirit of Service Awards. It was a very nice event. I believe Councilmember House, you were also there, and Councilmember Murillo. Always great to give awards out to residents who just, do a little something that means a big deal in terms of litter abatement, graffiti abatement, recycling, you name it. And there was a senior group that got an award and a couple of elementary schools that got an award. So that was nice to participate in. And And then on Friday, very surprised, council members Maria House and I were also at the Youth Leadership Awards at the Carrillo Recreation Center. And each year there were 49 youth members who got awards, but they also give out awards to a youth-related agency. And City of Santa Barbara got the award this year. So we didn't know that. And we're just sitting there listening to them talk. I'm like, oh, we should go up on stage. And so the award's right here. It's very nice. We'll go in our awards little display case. And I just want to appreciate the committee for recognizing all the different types of organizations and programs and services that the City of Santa Barbara provides for youth members. So, Mr. House?
And Madam Mayor, just it gave us a chance to first of all appreciate the incredible amount of leadership and positive spirit and energy that the young people in our community do, literally on an everyday basis. Obviously, from the reports and the stories that were told there, just incredible, and just never makes the news. You know,
Well,
to be able,
no, it got major coverage.
Oh, I didn't mean this. I meant the everydayness, the everyday life of these kids doing their work. Yes, this did get great coverage, and I'm glad. And it gave us a chance to share with the group that this council has identified that our youth are our highest priority. And looking out at that sea of incredible positive energy, it just made me feel very proud. Very proud.
Thank you. Okay, item number 7.
Closed session for a conference with labor negotiator.
Okay, and we will adjourn from closed session. Thank you.